So for our final WoW topic then, the add-on debate has really popped up. And it basically just all came from Yoshi P, where he was talking about just their own stances in the FF14 team.
We'll cover that shortly, don't worry.
Yeah, but it popped up. So Scripe basically said that, look, a lot of the simple tasks handled by the power of add-ons would be quite fun to do as a player.
Yeah.
True. There's raid fights and stuff like that. They're just more fun without add-ons.
I have a very big example of this, which will lean into me playing some Savage and going through some Savage mechanics. But I thought of very specific versions of, I know what I've done in this fight, and I know if I had something telling me where to go, if I didn't figure out where to go myself, I would not have enjoyed it. So that's something I'll get into when I talk about the FF version of this. But
yeah. Scripe did say that a DPS meter adds a lot of value in the game and should be part of a baseline. And he clarified saying it measures whether you are, what you're... Was that... I think that one was in it. Was that the one in a reply to me? I forgot. I tweeted it a little bit. Anyway, basically, like, so one of the points that I made as a response was, like, the DPS meter lets you feel your progression. Right, because like you really feel your progression. Back when you were a fire mage and you needed crit, you needed the stat, you would very much in your gameplay feel your gear progression.
But they've removed that from so many of the classes.
I can understand why for scaling reasons, but you know, still, of course, you got more haste, you feel better, happy. Yeah, it's the end of Legion. You have RSI. Yeah. Now for so in those times where you kind of don't have that very obvious feedback, I do think it's good that as the weeks go on, you notice your number going higher as a combination of your gear upgrades and also you're just being more comfortable with the fights and things like that. Then Scribe coming in with the other side of it, though, is that a DPS meter is, of course, allowing people to measure whether their current setup of talent spec, stuff like that, is working. It lets them test things, figure out what to do as well.
Yeah.
And a meter doesn't have to show others people's stats in pugs, but it definitely should in guild groups and raids. I agree with all that.
Yeah, it's awkward because it's like having the information in pugs is still useful.
It is.
But it's like, is this useful enough on general to warrant? Because there's definitely times you have someone in your group and they're doing like pitiful damage and you need to kick them to succeed. That is like really unfortunate, but it does happen in raids.
It does.
And that's the thing where like, if that still needs to happen, and the game doesn't actually allow that, then people will just use add-ons for it. And that's kind of the problem you always run into. Yeah. And it's like, it's really hard to get around that, so I have no idea. I don't know what the answer is there, to be honest.
In FF, because in FF, the downside of having one player is really bad. Yeah. It's kind of made up for in many situations by the combat res system.
Yeah.
Right, which means, you can extend the fight a little bit longer to make up for your lack of DPS in a way.
Which is still going to run into problems whenever you reach extremes in Savage with enraged timers.
But in that case, I think that's going to happen less because, it's like your average heroic player is better than your average normal player.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. Yeah, it's like that, yeah. Low DPS doesn't matter very much in like story content. It's just in harder content. That's where it's going to be a little bit of a problem. But no, that's certainly an interesting problem. But I don't know if there's any real solution, to be honest. But it's like, oh man, it's very difficult.
Now a lot of people are just like, you don't like add-ons? Don't use add-ons.
Yeah, don't be fucking thick.
To which Scribe says, saying you shouldn't use them if you don't want them is like saying don't do split runs if you don't want to. Yeah. You have no choice if you want to be good at the game. The lack of understanding for these things leaves me baffled every time. Of course, doesn't justify whether it's good or bad to have add-on split runs, whatever. I'm just seeing the argument way too often. Yeah, there's just a whole bunch of, like, you eating Nestle chocolate, bruh? You drinking bottled water?
Yep.
God, you must have a slate of terrible attributes. You know that thing,
well, I
right?
do, but that's not do with this.
Where, like, people don't engage with the core of, like, the actual thing that's being discussed. They just go straight for it, which I've noticed a fair bit with add-ons. And really a lot of noise on this issue.
Yeah.
Like, it's funny, I was away on holidays. Yeah. In France since like Monday midday, and I think
Tuesday midday.
Tuesday?
Tuesday.
It was Tuesday. See, when you do more things in a week, the week feels longer. It's fucked up.
Yep.
But yeah, so I do that. And I kind of just, pull the lever on Twitter, so to speak, maybe once or twice a day while I'm away. And I just see ongoing battles. Just ongoing fights.
It's great.
Between people. Like, fucking hell, this website's free. Just gotta look at all these people fighting. Incredible. Like, there's times I go to my notifications and I could have like 15, 25 notifications and it's just two motherfuckers fighting.
Yeah, I love it. I love the pieces. I mean, I hate it because it's like, obviously
I'm not talking shit to any of the people doing that, but certainly if it gets to that stage, it's just some rando on Twitter. Put your phone down. It's okay. It's okay. The war won't be lost. But just funny. I think with this add-on thing, it's not just about add-ons though. No, it's really about FF14 versus WoW. There's now so many dimensions to it. Yeah. People have got so fired up. It's crazy. It's very funny to watch.
Yeah, it's like it's such a major like shift. But I think it's people who won't stop and think about second and third order effects. It's people who go, well, add-ons are fine. Just player freedom, bro. You're like, yeah, but what does that player freedom impact have on the design of the game going forward? And they're like, sorry, my brain doesn't stretch that far. Or, maybe they're just going, I don't fucking want to think about that. It's like, well, if you're not going to engage with the entirety of the conversation, if you're not going to engage with the entirety of like the, I guess, debate, what the fuck you want to call it. What do people, the fucking discourse, that's the term people use now. If you're not going to engage with it fully, maybe step back whenever you're talking shit. But I don't know. It is very fucking, it's been a fun week. I've enjoyed it. It's been frustrating, but I've also enjoyed it. Oh god. But yeah. Fucking brutal.
Oh dear, yeah. So it's an interesting thing. Oh, we got titles. WoW would be substantially worse without weak auras and add-ons. I understand that some can be too powerful at times, but those should be targeted as opposed to deleting them or deleting add-ons. I take particular issue with the assignment weak auras feeling required for some raid encounters like Jailer. Yeah. But in general, almost all accessibility weak auras should be fair game. There'll be issues there with some accessibility ones. Well, if you kill one, you might, the collateral damage.
Yeah, well, yeah. Here's I was going to talk about this a little bit later in terms of FF, but might as well talk about it here because it makes sense. Freedom to express information and the accessibility of information. There is a point where accessibility overlaps with making something easier. Because it's like, it's all like, obviously you look at World of Warcraft, you go, obviously having your buffs in the top right's fucking pointless, right? But then it's like, if your buffs are easier for you to read and easier for you to see than someone who's playing with the personal nameplate display, personal resource display, the game is easier for you by that metric. It doesn't make your decision making easier, but it reduces like latency from you seeing what's there. And to me, that is like, that's kind of fair in the realm of UI stuff because we've always had that in World of Warcraft. But if you think about that from the perspective of someone playing like say like a Sekiro or something, right? In Sekiro, you've got basically I can't remember correctly, but at least two types of like unblockable things out of like an information display above the enemy where there's one of the a kanji appears above, and I can't remember which is which, but one of them denotes a sweep and the other denotes a thrust. When the enemy sweeps, you have to jump it because you can't block it, you can't parry it, you can't do anything about it. But when they thrust, you can, if you have the Makiri counter ability, you can dodge into it, and then you'll step on the thrust, like from the spear, and then counter. And it's like, that comes with a sound effect and a thing above the enemy's head, right? If that thing was, instead of being the kanji, if that wasn't at something that was way bigger in the middle of your screen and clearer to read, that would be easier. Yeah. And that's information displayed in a different way that's more readable, making something easier, giving you more time to react. And that's where like difficulty comes into it in a weird way. And it's like, talking about this in World of Warcraft's information is clearly not designed that way because they've relied on add-ons for so long. So you're like, yeah, fuck it, that's clearly designed to be difficult and shit. But add-ons have solved that problem, so that's okay. It's like I guess another example would be the interrupt timers for M+. Without those, it's really hard to coordinate who's got an interrupt.
Totally.
But with those, you get to see the information that you shouldn't be able to see otherwise because it's querying player stats.
Those are evidently design knowing that that's a limited resource.
Yeah.
And there is an understanding that players will be able to manage that resource.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's kind of designed around it.
Yeah, so that's this like informational gap that's way better for people with this information. It's like, oh yeah, well that information is technically available, or you can technically talk about it, but then it's kind of, if you have it, you're literally better. And that's the stuff that's very difficult to kind of, for people to think about in terms of the very like detailed mechanical perspective of what part is difficult, what's not. It's like, oh, just information, bro. You're like, yeah, but the information's like the speed of you seeing that information's the difference. I think, and that's certainly something else to think about. But that's where accessibility and difficulty kind of overlaps again. It's like, well, this is fucking difficult because, you know, what do you do with a visually impaired player who needs a big debuff? Then that's where the line gets really blurry and no one has a right answer, because no one, and rightfully so, no one's willing to say, sorry, those people are at a disadvantage, because they can't see as well.
And the tricky thing is this is a multiplayer game with competitive elements.
Yeah.
Like, let's just say that The Last of Us Part 2 is now an esport. Quite shocking if that happened.
Yeah.
But a lot of accessibility features that are vital for some people to be able to have a great experience of that game.
Yeah.
They would be turned on by the esportsy people.
Yep.
And it's an interesting problem to grapple with.
Yep.
Right. And I check out The Last of Us Part 2's accessibility options. Actually, all the Sony
The
first
Sony
parties,
studios,
they're incredible.
insane. Was it Spider-Man's? I think was absolutely mind blowing for people.
And there are some that even a normal player may want to tweak, per their individual preference.
And that's the part where some of that makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Like Spider-Man has ways to really like, I think it's like an outline of like an enemy versus an ally, so you can make enemies really easy to spot at a distance.
For some people, that makes the game more fun.
Yeah.
I have an example. I don't think it was built as an accessibility feature in the game.
You talk the aim assist on Uncharted? Yeah.
The aim assist on Uncharted.
Yep.
Look, Naughty Dog don't have great gunplay.
No.
Right? So, but they do have fun movement. I think because it's pretty good movement, but it's all animated and stuff so well that it feels quite weighty. So if you're playing Uncharted 4 with the aim assist on and you're just really focused on movement, that actually makes for a really fun experience that just totally moves it to be less cover shooter, more Indiana Jones, and that's way more fun.
Yeah.
But of course, also for people maybe with like, say, some fine motor control issues or something, that aim assist would be an absolute godsend that would allow them to play that game.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, there's Morph Points pointing out that, you know, Spider-Man has an option to turn off the button mash QTEs. And, well, this is maybe a different thing I'll maybe talk about a little bit later, but I really hate button mash QTEs the way they feel.
Same.
But they're way better in essence than holding the button. And that's because it's a different form of input.
Yeah.
And you're hitting that button, and the act of you actually hitting that button hard, sure, could result in RSI, sure, accessibility issues, but that being the default means you're going to be pressing that button, you're going to be trying harder to physically do this thing. Sure, it's not difficult, but you're there actually mashing, as opposed to just holding the button. And I think that's like one of the really small differences that I think kind of people don't think about too much. But that's maybe a different fucking kettle of fish entirely.
We've got then some more comment from X now, World of Warcraft developer Jeff Hamilton.
Oh yeah.
Says, yep, these tools do a great job of letting players express what information they care about and helping the game give them the information in timely and meaningful ways. And everyone gets to define what's meaningful to them because it's custom.
Yeah.
So I guess I would say with that, these are all of that is true. I think that's a problem.
That's exactly
I guess my response to Jeff would be, if you're saying that, then really that should be an admission that the baseline game has a serious issue that Blizzard has completely abdicated on.
That is exactly
definitely. I agree with everything he said, but I totally disagree with I think what his point is about that.
Yeah, that's exactly.
I don't think that's how a designer should see something like this. Really. Because I don't think it is.
Okay, well,
because how you design the game, you design the game.
Well, maybe you don't.
Well, you should be designing the game with a pretty clear understanding of what the player's audiovisual experience is going to be.
Yeah.
So if your baseline audiovisual experience is not doing a good job of basically like UX, then it's just not working. So you can't. And I think that maybe not to like pin it on Jeff.
Yeah, it's definitely.
I think this is probably an
like
attitude that the team had at a point.
Yeah.
But I think that attitude leads to problems where it's just like, oh, well, this is the shit in the boss fight. You can display it in a way that's meaningful to you if you so wish.
Yeah.
But maybe if none of that was possible, and then the design constraints, because that's the thing about design and often creativity as well, constraints are super important.
Yep.
Imagine a Halo show that actually completely went with the constraints of the character as established. It would probably...
Oh my god, Halo fans would have loved it.
It would be a harder creative challenge to work within those. So take a show like Mr. Robot, where the literal situation in its characters is very much something that has to be reflected in the filmmaking, in the way that everything about that show is done. So you've taken the stuff about the plot, the story, the characters, and that is a constraint that you now have to create the show in. Yep. And if we think of so many of our favorite bits of media, there are elements of the craft that totally match the constraints, and that's what makes it feel like such an incredible experience. Severance does a pretty good job of that recently as well. You could have something like Severance, but all the filming and stuff could be just, imagine, like in a completely fucking conventional.
Yeah, like the Always Sunny filming, but Severance. That kind of thing. Like sitcom stuff.
I just mean like sometimes honing in really well on the constraints allows you to just elevate that experience. I guess maybe the Halo thing is just the more concise point to make. Or Mandalorian even, you don't see Pedro Pascal for most of that. Yeah. Because that's like a part of the creative constraints.
Yeah, so you have to find a way for the character to display all the emotionality of a character without going, human face is very emotionality. We don't have the human face. How else would we do
it? Yeah, exactly. A lot of constraints are super important. I don't know. I think it's a bit cowardly to shirk off constraints and just kind of throw all the tools out there.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. They're just like...
It's like in this case, how the fuck do you design an encounter?
Oh, well, you have to design an encounter for the base UI. You have to make sure that's playable. They clearly don't a lot of the time.
Yeah, like if you're designing the game, you should be designing what access to information players have.
Yeah.
You should do that.
That is literally part of the game.
Yeah, and you should lock down and control what the player has access to. Yeah. Because if they have access to too much, if they can fucking peek behind the curtain, and it's all different. And I think so many of the issues of these add-ons for people is that you can sort of peek behind the curtain a little bit.
Yeah. Well,
so it's like everything you said is true, and I think it is a very bad thing.
Yeah.
I'm not in on that. Like your class UI, like that the game for so many years has had buffs in fucking Narnia that are important for you to know.
But then they fixed some of that by having the spell effect stuff. So whenever you're Frost Mage and you have a brain freeze proc, it's on your screen. There you go. You've got your 2 fingers of frost. But, then your frozen orb coming up is at the bottom of your screen. And then, I know there's some visual effect for you still having icy veins and stuff like that. But, it's up at the top right of your screen if you want to see the duration of that.
Yeah.
And that's where maybe it's in the personal resources display as well. But that's the interesting stuff. Like,
I'll say, to be clear, I don't think FF14 does a marvelous job of its UI. Either.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't. No. Honestly, I think it's a pretty bad UI.
It's got quite a number of the same problems. It has a little bit more customization for you to deal with it manually, but it's very much a workaround.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier a couple times this stream, you want a solution, not players having workarounds, because that's bullshit.
Yeah. The difference, I think, with FF is that they are pretty consistent between their difficulty modes and like just the way that they communicate things to players within a fight.
Yeah.
Also, you not perfectly understanding something is not punished as much because of their combat res system. So they have a whole bunch of things that get around how just the sort of default MMO UI isn't always the best. And of course, Blizzard are working on trying to baseline some of those features.
Yeah, so in terms of designing a fight around what information is available, this is where I think I have a pretty interesting example. I was going to use it later when talking about FF, but I'll use it now. So in P1S, in the first Savage fight of Pandemonium, there's what's called Fourfold Shackles is an ability. And the strategy that party finders come up with to solve this is you check, basically everyone gets a unique debuff. It's either red or blue or red or purple, and then it has a timer. I think it's 3, 8, 13, or 18 seconds. And people have like 8 markers on the actual game world, and based on which color and which duration, you go there. So Fourfold Shackles casts, you see your debuff. Say, I think the example I have in my head is 3 seconds red. You move to the marker that's C. Someone with blue and 3 would move to the marker 3. So everyone sees that debuff, and that little click of that's blue, that's 8, I go here. There's a world where if that was a mechanic in World of Warcraft, you could have a weak aura literally programmed to, instead of saying you have this debuff, it would just calculate, C or 3 or 4 or whatever marker. It would say moon, say for world markers, and you would just go there. And that's literally just an informational difference.
Yeah.
That's just a little tiny informational difference that completely changes how the entire thing is felt by you. It removes one step of calculation in your head. It's not a massive calculation. It's literally just like a fucking, an if fucking thing in code. That's all it is. But it's that little thing of you're not doing that, so it feels less enjoyable. And that's something I noticed doing Savage. But another example of that is automated callouts. And this is what they got in trouble for in FF, where they have triggers and CACBot stuff just doing automated callouts for when things happen. So instead of you having to see, the boss is raising its hand one way or something else is happening like that, there's something happening. They'll check either it's the network traffic for a specific packet or like a battle log callout or something, and then something will pick that up and then go, this is this. This is happening. And then you'll hear it through text to speech, or it'll print a message or something on your screen. And that's a case of you don't actually have to look and see. Something else brings it to your attention. Raid leaders do that a lot of the time. In WoW, it's like, this thing's coming up next. We call it. But that's a part of gameplay. Whereas if something else solves it for you, then that's just, you have an informational advantage, and that makes the game easier. And that's the thing where they should have control over how you solve that problem. Like with the Sekiro example earlier, it'd be very different if you had a text-to-speech voice say, Bikiri, counter this, or jump this, versus you having to go, what do I do here? Oh, I jump. I think that's kind of the crux of like the raid design part of it. There's also like fucking so much else in terms of just what weak auras do in terms of information. Because the difference between the weak aura, because everyone just uses the like proper weak auras from, is it Kossis, I think his name is, who makes most of them. And that just goes, big fast flashing icon with the icon of the debuff. It just says stack. You knowing the stack is like, but you know that if you know the mechanic. Yeah, but what if you forget? The weak aura reminds you. You're playing, the game's easier. The game's easier because the information's there. You don't have to connect those neurons. And connecting neurons is fucking fun.
Yeah, that's actually game.
Yeah, that's the game, yeah.
Right. Here's the thing. Dark Souls is a fucking easy game.
Easy as fuck, yeah.
Easy as fuck game. I'm not good at reliably executing on that easy as fuck game, therefore it's hard.
Yeah, you just press buttons at the right time, easy.
Yeah, bruh.
It's like a rhythm.
Just get good.
Yeah, because
it's literally I just get good.
It's like imagine you're playing Dark Souls, right? Or any fucking combat game with a dodge. Yeah. And instead of the enemy having a wind up and then a swing, and you have to know to dodge, imagine, because this is something that Trek to Yomi does, right? The enemy's blade will flash when it's time for you to hit the parry button. So you don't have to learn anything about like when in their swing point they're going to swing. You just look, and it's a very short time, so you need fast reactions. And it helps if you learn because you can preempt and stuff. But if you're fast enough, you can go, parry. You can just parry fucking anything because the normal enemies have that flash to tell you when to parry. That's that there. So you're playing an action game, and instead of it being, see how the swing goes, I think someone said a slow down QTE, but that's kind of it. Where imagine a version where it actually the button you're supposed to press flashes on your screen, and there's like a rhythm game style like thing closing in on it, and then it goes like perfect whenever you hit the button, and that's what you're just tapping the button on the perfectly timed prompt, as opposed to trying to figure out what part of the swing is going to hit you or what not. That's the kind of thing, basically.
Yeah. So that's it. It's like WoW is an easy solved game at almost unless you are making the strategy, i.e. world first.
Yeah.
WoW is an easy solved game.
They're all super.
In a way.
MMOs are fucking piss easy.
Yeah. But it's, can you do it?
Yeah.
Can you connect those neurons? Yeah. Right? It's like, yeah, you can read up how to do the fight. You're like, oh, it's an easy fight. I just do that. Because you can compare whenever you're comfortable with a fight, whenever you're not comfortable with a fight. When you're comfortable, it feels easy, even if it felt really hard at the start.
Yeah.
A good example of that for me is, say, Highland, normal.
Yeah.
Fucking terrifying. To you, it's just like, done.
Yeah.
Easy.
Nothing.
Yeah, I see light waves and I scream.
Yeah.
But you get it because you've put the neurons together.
I've done it more than I've done it in you.
Yeah. So I guess that's the thing. The more that add-ons just kind of give players, react to this, react to this, react to this, orders, then I think you end up with this situation. You got these guilds where the second they don't have add-ons and a raid leader doing things, whole thing falls apart because nobody actually knows what they're doing. Yeah. They're just responding to shit.
And that's what add-ons have done to World of Warcraft.
And this is where Jeff is really hitting being in the money here.
Yeah.
The pace of the game has definitely changed over the years in response to player use of those tools. Yeah. And maybe that's not the sort of thing he could have said that much as about, Ev.
Definitely not. No. I mean, it took...
Jeff, the Blizzard Assassins are onto you! Quickly! Get in cover!
Yeah, so, it took Ian being on Asmongold's stream.
I'm sure that went down well.
That is such an unprecedented thing. Basically, I would never have expected it. I even see that as a massive victory for Blizzard going, fuck, maybe we need to do something different. But it took that for them to actually finally say,
I don't know. Yes, I cannot imagine that was popular internally.
I can't imagine either. But at least if the game director's going, fuck it, we need to do something, that's hopeful. So it took that level of, oh fuck, this is new, this is different, this is crazy Blizzard. I'm just going to call him Crazy Blizzard now on. This is crazy Ian actually talking about add-ons being a problem.
Wow, is that a video title? Did you just spontaneously start talking in video titles?
Maybe, but that's the thing where it's holy shit, Crazy Ian's finally admitted add-ons fucking suck. That's a thing where that would be a very super clickbait version, but that's what it took.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could imagine. Definitely couldn't say this.
It's the sort of thing, I think Zach led on it, and something I sort of came to believe as well during Warlords of Draenor.
Yeah.
Because it's been since WoD that discussion of the game is in a way too hard, and hard's the wrong word.
It's too fucking complicated. It's too informationally dense a lot of the time.
Yeah. So this is where I think I suppose Jeff is now talking about something that I think to tie it into the Ian interview that Asmongold's been talking about since WoD, which is the game just is fucking hard. There's a lot of shit, and I know for a bunch of people in and around here, that's not going to be an issue.
Yeah.
But, I mean, maybe certainly people who looked at that Sepulchre of the First One's raid clip, they're going to think, well, fuck, of course they think the game's hard. Look at them.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, don't worry. We've had clown fiestas too. Many of them. Fucking hell, we really have had some clown fiestas. But sometimes the clown fiesta raid nights where you make no progress, but everyone is fucking howling with laughter.
Yeah,
those are the best. But anyway, point is, I guess, for your very average player, in a game where, as Jeff here is saying, the pace has definitely changed over response to those tools. Lots of players won't even know about those tools. Yeah. For some players, the idea of having, and I even see this in our video comments, that's the more engaged about people who just don't want to have to download a thing, to do a thing, to set up the thing so that it can be done, and then they're worried it'll break in the next patch.
Yeah, fuck that.
By the way, generally it doesn't, at least in my experience.
Well, it breaks, but because of PTR and shit, they're updated in time.
Yeah, so, it's evidently an issue for quite a few players.
Yeah.
And I think that just means that the game has kind of passed them by. So Jeff is saying the pace of the game has changed because Blizzard are getting used to people having these tools. That means there could be a really cool mechanic, let's just say the Among Us mechanic.
Yep.
Will Blizzard feel like that has to have a harder time requirement because of an add-on? The was it Mout? Who was the bug dude? The fake bugs appeared, and then we kind of cheesed the mechanic because both of our tanks were playing in the same room in Nyalotha. Whatever that boss was.
Yes.
Yeah, whatever that boss was.
Yeah.
It's could Blizzard actually make those mechanics a bit slower, a bit more of a, hang on, right, let's work out this problem, team.
Yeah.
Instead of do you see it? Do you see it? Do you see it? And everyone's screaming and panicking. Yeah. And could they slow those things down and have them be a bit more reasonable and accessible, but still Skitra, that was it. But, you know, they still achieve their core design goals.
Yeah, I mean,
could they do that more successfully in a world where they don't feel like they need to increase the pace of the game in response to add-ons? But Jeff goes on to say that, though, it's a big problem that new players may need those tools. They can't keep up, or maybe they want them, but ripping them out would just hurt everything. Here's the thing. Would completely murdering, obliterating computational add-ons in an instanced setting, like, would a new expansion be the time to do it?
Yes.
And then just fully design raid fights with that in mind?
Yeah. Well,
they won't do it, by the way, but...
Yeah. How do you destroy the computational add-ons and not everything else? Because it's all... this is what Ian was saying in the interview. It's all weak auras. Weak auras is literally too powerful a framework. If they have to kill what weak auras can do, because weak auras has all that like computational stuff built into itself. So they need to kill the ability to show something custom on screen. That's what they basically need to do. And that would just do so much damage to everything. It's like you were saying about, like, you know, putting stuff on raid frames. You would have to kill custom raid frames for that to
Could you make protected auras?
I think they've been trying that and sometimes failing. I think that's like a lot of what they were doing with what do they call it? I think that's how they got the Amogus stuff to work.
Okay.
Because obviously there's no add-on that just tells you. You have to even the solution add-on or the solution weak aura is the vote UI, which obviously makes it super, super easy and doesn't require any explanation whatsoever. But
it does at least involve players looking around, having a quick think, and voting. So at least there's a little bit of a gameplay in that.
There's a tiny bit, yeah. So it's like that's what they're trying to do.
Maybe it's just being more ambitious in mechanics like that and just furthering their ability to do protected auras. When I say protected auras, basically, like there's some variables and functions, whatever, in the game that are protected that add-ons cannot access.
Yeah. Like the whole secure button thing, where an add-on can't press a button for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So by making those things protected, the add-ons couldn't interact.
Yep.
So there you go. Maybe they just continue to really go hardcore in that.
Yeah. Well, then
that's. I guess what I would like to see is what are the cool things that we could buy with the room that is left, the room that is created by toning some of those things down.
Yeah, that's the awkward thing. But then that's like, well, yeah, that's basically what they kind of have to do. I hate that Among Us mechanic because of the weak aura, because we initially ran into it and had a fucking massive nightmare, and we were like all talking over each other trying to get it solved, and then we thought, well, we need to fucking figure this out. And we sat, and I remember we had figured out a very, people would call and then we'd have a very quick response.
Yeah.
Based on okay, who agrees, who disagrees, and that'll be like a very quick, like almost like a tournament bracket for who it is, would run really quickly. And then just got the weak aura and then just turned it into the right name, as opposed to having fun and working it out together. And that's really awkward. Then there's other stuff like, I can figure out, this is definitely a mechanic that requires a voice chat to be super, super well done in time. So that's an accessibility issue again, and I really wish I had a better way to say this, but I feel like a lot of people who don't understand the damage add-ons are doing and like them are hiding behind accessibility as an argument, as opposed to thinking outside the box and how can we solve both of these. Especially because I look over at FF's design and how it's designed to not have any, no mid-fight communication requirements. You can solve every problem before the fight, and then adjust after the fight. But you don't need to communicate mid-fight because console players can't type without a keyboard, and you don't want people to have to go buy something to play your game. And also, voice chat is an issue for here and there. And obviously, that's a very different kind of raid design. And World of Warcraft with the Among Us mechanic, with the Blood Queen Lanathal stuff, as Ian was pointing out, that's stuff designed to be there, so it's kind of hard to have both there. But it's like we're talking about, throw in a bunch of ping mechanics, like the Apex ping system, to kind of have intelligent stuff go on there. A little bit, a couple of default macros for communication or something like that would maybe solve that problem a little bit. But it's fundamentally, I think there's so much there's just so much. There's so many problems with these fucking add-ons, but people haven't been talking about it for so long. It's such a deeply, I don't want to say like rotten to the core, but it's that like really deeply entrenched parasite in a way.
just a horrible position. It's what Dakor kind of calls out here.
Yeah.
Blizzard has to design around add-ons. If they don't design around add-ons, then the people with add-ons will find the game to be way undertuned.
Yeah.
And they'll sail through the game. And then they won't have a satisfying experience. Then you say, yeah, but don't use add-ons. But it's a decently competitive game. People want to get ahead. People want to, even at the very basic thing of, I want to get the big cool sword and make my character's number go up faster. They're of course going to use the add-ons. It's not like the entire player base is just going to sit down and form a gentleman's agreement not to use add-ons. I guess that's the thing. Just don't use add-ons, bro. That's not the problem.
It's not the problem. It's not an individual problem. It's a systematic problem.
Yeah, exactly.
It is almost that like, well, just don't just recycle, bro. Just just don't pollute.
Yeah.
Just don't look after your own place. Like, nah,
just make the supply chain ethical, bro.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah, it's like that is relatively fair for anyone to try and do that, but that doesn't solve the problem.
Yeah.
It would be nice for a person to do that, but it's not going to solve anything. I think that's the major thing I take away. But then obviously I will also suggest that a lot of my approach to this is very much, I'm going to think about the bigger picture, because I'm not fucking playing this game without add-ons. Fuck you. They have to make me, because I am a player, and I will take the path of least resistance because I am a player.
Yeah,
that's what I am.
You know what, Matt? Matt, you big fucking commie. If you're going to complain about those gasoline prices, just use your freedom not to drive your car.
Exactly.
Wrecked.
Yeah, it's as
slammed.
Yeah, it's as Dakor say. Yet you participate. Curious, I am very smart.
That's it. Yeah, straight to r/I am very smart. One of the funniest places in the internet. I have Piazza Fantasyland statement.
Yeah, I mean,
I was just in Fantasyland in Disneyland Paris. Pretty neat.
Yeah, I mean, there's who did says they made game that rely on so much tracking things, especially for dot users. The base game UI is useless. They'll kill the game if they ban add-ons. That's the thing. Imagine doing Mythic Plus without, as a healer, when I've been able to see all of your tank's defensives handily.
Oh,
scuffed. Imagine being able to not track other people's interrupts, so you end up like shitting your interrupts on something that needs interrupted really badly, and your whole run's been fucked because you're like high Mythic Pluses on a knife's edge.
Yeah, the whole design of the Mythic Plus. And here's the thing, actually. It's not even their fault. It is because they designed it. The thing with Mythic Plus is it will always get to a level of difficulty where an add-on will be needed to optimally plan your stuff to progress in realistic scenarios.
Yep, exactly.
Purely because it's an infinitely, it could scale forever. You know what I mean, though?
Yeah, it's like if having an add-on will help you do 1% more damage or take 1% less damage, and that 1% of damage is what's killing you versus letting you clear, then the add-on is going to be necessary because it scales up to that point eventually, no matter what. It is inevitable it'll get to that point.
And I suppose it's just the way some of the game is played in ye old modern day, and maybe the Mythic Plus system, those kind of, they maybe encourage people to feel like they need that sort of thing. And then, of course, there's the whole cultural aspect, too.
Yeah, of course.
Which, obviously, we don't really need to talk about it too much.
For sure.
So, let's see. Right. Dakor is a smart cookie and a CE Mythic Raider. So, let's see what he has to say. Large disparity between those that use add-ons and don't on the whole. Those Destro Warlocks that dot snapshot and don't. In Mists of Pandaria, something Blizzard found to be a massive design issue.
Yep.
While there are indeed outliers on both sides for this, the majority of cases there is a very large gap. People that don't use add-ons for the most part are at large disadvantage compared to those who do in all aspects of endgame. Even the auction house. You don't... Here, by the way, right, if you don't have TSM, you're fucked.
Don't even bother.
You can do really well without TSM, but it is like a crazy next level whenever you use TSM. Yeah. And I will say, I'm totally the sort of person who would use TSM because it is some fucking gorgeous, nerdy shit.
Yeah.
But equally, is that just kind of saying, I would like to be in the big 1% and all of you peons in the server will buy my wares. Ha ha ha, I've cornered the market. Yeah. Versus maybe a more healthy sort of economy for all of the players in the game. I don't know, something to think about.
Yeah, I mean, like, trying to be an auctioneer without using Trade Skill Master is like showing up to a rally on a fucking bike. That's what it's like. It's like, no, you do not have an engine. Where the fuck are you supposed to go? Like,
a Subaru versus an e-bike. Who will win? Part of the Race to World First has now become an arms race between who has the best developers, timers, and weak auras.
Yep, 100%.
That's also true. It's crazy. I mean, in one side of things, it is really cool. And the part of the Race to World First, because to be honest with you, I don't watch the Race to World First. I just don't find it to be interesting to watch.
I enjoy the drama aspect of it, and I also enjoy seeing some comps.
What I enjoy, in the same way, basically what I enjoy about the Race to World First is hearing about the logistics, because I'm just not interested in WoW as an esport. Personally, only personally, this is not a disparagement on people who do.
He hates it. He thinks you're stupid for liking it.
Oh, jeez. But the bit of the Race to World First that I find really interesting is the human endeavor of it.
Yeah, that's,
like the lengths to these people, to which these people go. Yeah. The way that they have weak aura creators, as Inspector Catch is pointing out, they have weak aura creators like on staff.
Yeah,
sitting there,
literally pay them to make cheats for the game.
yeah. It's like all the raiders have been. I don't know. They've been fucking greased up and ready to go. There's a fucking team of drone operators behind them doing all this crazy shit. It's all madness. Yeah. Right? Fucking 1 million goblins, 90 grand worth of WoW gold, and all this crazy. Like, man, it's such a cool endeavor. Yep. But yeah, undoubtedly, like, we're at the stage where software development is now a core part of WoW as an esport.
The fuck, like?
This is very interesting, isn't it?
Straight up, go fuck yourself, like.
Now, that's not the whole story. There's obviously all the player effort, all of the skill. A bad player with add-ons is a bad player, for sure. But there are some things that just are way easier, are trivialized, then, maybe something's wrong there. Applied to the Drover thingy from Putricide and Wrath of the Lich King. I remember the very day that I refreshed MMO Champion to look at that back in 2009. Or was it 10? I forget. Anyway.
Putricide would have been 2009, right?
I'm just thinking by the time Putricide unlocked and Act was actually, or whatever it was called, actually shut down. It could have been early 2010.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
because it was December 2000.
Yeah, 2010, yeah, sorry. Yeah.
No!
Yeah.
No!
Because Fall Lich King was December 2009.
Oh, yeah. Yes!
Yeah.
Yes, I'm silly. Now, the argument most people are making is to not remove the ability to more easily track buffs, debuffs, cooldowns, abilities. No, the crux of the issue is the ability of weak auras to tell you when something is happening, what to do, where to go, who to pair up with, and what the solution is. Yeah. The correct, more balanced and less emotional response to this would be to lobby Blizzard to add the non-game breaking functionality of most popular add-ons and weak auras to the base game experience, something they're starting to do. Yeah, it's like, look, if some new bit of do this is going to be in the game, let that be something the designer has put in there that they have designed as a part of my combat experience.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of just me getting around their design.
Yeah, there's maybe just because we haven't had one in a little bit of a while, there's maybe like a food analogy here of it being a buffet versus a designed fucking experience. And I think designed experiences are generally a lot what people play games for a little bit more or a little better of it, like especially as a subsection.
Yeah.
It's like you want your buffet to be I will engage in raiding today, thank you very much. I'll have a full plate of Mythic Plus. I will have a bowl of crafting for dessert. Versus, that's what you want, but you don't want to be like, well, I have to fucking, put together my raiding experience. So I'll have, it's falling apart here for sure.
Okay.
But it's like, people want a designed one.
Is it a buffet of final meal items or is it a buffet of ingredients?
That's the thing. At the minute, it's like a buffet of ingredients more so. Where in the ideal world, you want a actual final meal item. You want to have the designer designed the thing, as opposed to they've half cooked it and you're supposed to fucking finish it.
Yeah, that's true. Because I don't want a world where Peter Yu can't do what he does.
I would be willing to accept that for improvements elsewhere. That's the thing. But that's a weird dichotomy, and it's like one of these will have to be sacrificed. And as much as I love Narcissus, I think I'd rather have it go away. Because I'd rather have the game that Blizzard designed.
Well, I don't think there's probably a lot of stuff that Narcissus does that have nothing to do with any change we're talking about here anyway.
Yeah, and more like in a choose A or B.
Yeah,
I would take one, but obviously there's a nuanced answer in the middle.
So as for what can be done, well, the aim and guiding star of UX and game development is that players don't feel the desire or need to download and use any external third-party software. It should all be possible out of the box. Just like with the lore!
Yeah.
No fight or pillar of gameplay should be designed around or become trivial with the use of add-ons or weak auras. Yeah. What about somebody who is dealing with accessibility issues for the game. Yeah, I suppose that is the question. I don't know if Dakor's dropped any answers here, but I think probably talking with those players is the start.
Yeah, well, here's the problem. Like, these aren't problems you can just solve. These aren't like, oh yeah, here's the answers. Because it'd be great if we could just get, here's all the answers. We'll sell them to you for 100 for, like, here's Blizzard, give us $1 million, here's all the answers. They have to figure it out. It's kind of their job to figure this stuff out. And they've not been doing it because they've let us figure it out for them. And turns out if you let players design the UI, they'll design the UI that makes your game fucking easy.
Yeah, well, I suppose for the most part, for the fundamentals of accessibility, what am I thinking about? I'm thinking about enemy outlines, things like that, where it's like if they added in more things like that were just turned on by default, or just any of that, players would instantly just turn it on.
Yeah,
which is tricky, but you could totally see why those would be valid things to add. I think openness for other types of controller is probably one of the most important things. So I was very happy.
Got that with the...
we got that with the console stuff, so you don't need to install WoW Mapper now if you want to use a gamepad for accessibility reasons.
They would need a UI for that to be super ideal, but
yeah, they really should have a UI for that. I think a lot of it is just making the base UI better, really.
See, that's an interesting one. I think I kind of talked this, but there's, Ray's saying, but an easy UI is good. It really helps you play with actual game mechanics. The UI is the game mechanic. The designers designed the UI as well. That's the thing people, like, I completely understand what you're saying. And I believe I probably would have agreed at the time, but I've been thinking about it a lot more. I'm like, no, I think the UI is part of the design.
I was like trying to think about a more holistic experience. It's like everything on that fucking screen while WoW.exe is open is the game.
Yeah, so it's like, even like default controls and stuff, like what thinking about that comes into it. It's like an example of, even keybinds is an interesting example.
Yeah.
Where, obviously we've moved to customizable controls a lot of the time because people haven't decided that's like a super important part of like the design or the gameplay, and you're allowed to customize that. But like default controls are a part of design. Do you put something on, say you put aim down sight on a controller on like the square button or the X button, and then you put shoot on B or the like a circle button. That's fucking insane. That would mean you'd have to play the game with your thumb horizontal to try and aim down sight and shoot at the same time. And that would be bullshit. But if they did that for a reason, they would do that because that would make the game harder. That's a valid control thing. And that's where Blizzard's default keybinds fucking suck balls. And they are super, super, super hard to actually play with. If you play with one across the number pad, the fucking number row, the game is just harder for you.
Yeah.
Versus having them in a place where you can actually, I guess, like my interrupt's always on V, so I can hit it with my thumb at a moment's notice. That makes the game easier than if my interrupt was on equal, where I'd have to take my right hand off the mouse and hit equal, or move my left hand away from movement controls the whole way over. And this is the kind of stuff that's like part of the holistic experience.
Yeah.
And you've been able to see the information is there as well. It's like, that's the stuff that's kind of important. It's like cast bars for enemies and stuff. That's all actually part of the design. Do you want an enemy to cast and just have a cast bar and animation? Or do you want them to grow really massive so you can click them really easy and interrupt them? It's kind of the small differences of like the entire usability structure is the game mechanic.
Yeah, even things like if you have a cast at mouse position in world space, a macro for Blizzard, you can say, then one of your instant blizzards feels way better with that control scheme.
Yeah.
And it's just that thing. Controls are a part of game design. Yeah. And your key bindings are controls. So imagine playing a new game and it doesn't have great controls. The game will feel less fun to you.
It can be harder.
And it would be harder, yeah. So it's interesting. So let's see, what's Dakor got for us? The end result of baking all the great functionality and customization that these third-party add-ons provide into the base game is a much better product and experience for all players, especially the average, more casual-oriented or impaired player. Players need to be listened to and heard. On the side of this argument, if there's ever going to be a chance of resolving a satisfactory way, a middle ground that most people will be happy in. If all add-ons and weak cores were to suddenly disappear overnight, then that would be a massive impact for people who use them. be that for accessibility reasons or be that for just performance reasons. So yeah, I don't think anyone is saying just rip them all out at once. I think maybe it's, well, some people are definitely saying remove all add-ons.
People are saying that, but that would do a substantial amount of damage.
I would advocate for make the base UI better and better. It's like there's a supply-demand thing. It's not literally supply-demand, but like, what is our supply in a way here? It's like, how good is the base UI? Because that like kind of curbs players' appetite for add-ons. So I think you do that, but then to curb the negative externalities of players feeding that appetite on your game design, then protect more functions and do everything you can to shut down the computational aspects of add-ons while trying to preserve as many of the good things as you can, which is no doubt a really hard challenge, given that Weak Auras is doing so much of that lifting itself, because it's fucking marvelous what Weak Auras can do.
It is an
like, just as a piece of software, it's incredible.
It is fucking amazing. Yeah,
it's incredible. So hard.
Yep, absolutely. It's there's just no fucking answer. I guess that's the annoying part. There's no answer, so we have to find one over time. And it's like, I guess it's almost the same as like you're saying supply and demand is thinking the piracy problem, whereas like add-ons provide a better service than the game, so the game needs to provide a better service than the add-ons.
Yeah,
and that's the only way they'll win. But they have to do that to win. So yeah.